Greetings YouTube, the author Mark Simmons here, back for my 19th instalment of my readings from the Psionic Powers Trilogy. In this episode I will be reading a snippet from chapter 5 of my third novel, Raised from Darkness. In the story so far, our protagonist has got back to the manse. Has been back at the manse for a time and has been recovering from various ordeals, the ordeals that he's been through the past two books, whilst also learning about the sort of new powers that he's been experiencing, basically. Raised from Darkness is available on Amazon via Poe Boy Publishing. As always, I've not rehearsed this, so let's see what I get wrong this week. This is an extract from chapter 5, which is called A Knock at the Door. Avez stopped in his tracks, and Whitfield nearly ran into the back of him. The priest reached into his robes, pulling out a small device, its screen coming to life. Avez gave a sharp intake of breath as he looked down at the screen. Whitfield started to look at what had shocked Avez, but his eye was distracted. Up ahead, Cook stepped up to the front door and proceeded to open it. Avez noticed Cook a moment after Whitfield, and he reached out with his left hand as he called out to the doorman. Whitfield could hear Cook start to make his usual Whitaker greetings when the door burst open and he was thrown backwards to the floor. A wall of reinforced polycarbonate marched through the open door as two body-length police riot shields forced their way inside. Both of the wielders took 2 steps into the manse before one of them turned left and the other to the right. Whitfield grabbed Avez and pushed him towards the nearest door to their left. Avez gave no protest, turning the handle as they reached the door and barging it open with his shoulder. The two of them ducked through the doorway out of sight. They were in a small room. Various cleaning products were neatly lined up on shelves along one wall. All different sizes of brooms, mops and buckets lined the opposite wall. The smell of bleach was thick in the confined space. The room gave Whitfield little comfort, as there was only one way in or out, and he didn't fancy being trapped in it. Whitfield turned around and edged up to the doorway. He leant out just enough so that he could see what was going on at the entrance. More people had come streaming into the reception area. Another 2 riot shields had taken up position next to their comrades, forming a defensive wall either side of the manse's entrance. A group of foreman's shock troops, the cowls they wore to cover their disfigured faces, now a familiar sight, fanned out beyond the shield walls. Had the night gone a different way, Gadir's prisoner James might have been one of their number. More troops came in after them, but these ones had made no effort to cover their faces, for they had no disfigurements to hide. They too stepped outside the wall of shields, taking up positions around the reception area. Between the two groups, they had brought an assortment of weapons, ranging from swords and fire axes, sledgehammers and crowbars, different sports bats, and even the occasional piece of wood. All of them looked ready to use them. 2 of the group grabbed a hold of Cook and lifted him to his feet. Whitfield singled out a familiar face from the rest of the crowd, and his blood began to boil. Eddie Lament wore the same dark red leather jacket he was so fond of, its heavy material hanging off his thin shoulders. His hair was matted against his head as if it had been raining, but no one else appeared to be wet. Hygiene was not an important part of Eddie's eternity. His waxy skin shining as much as his dirty hair in the light, a billow of smoke escaping from his mouth as he turned his head towards the front door. This tall man had led Whitfield and Esther on a journey through the city that had gone badly. When they had first left the manse, it had been a rebellious act. Whitfield had wanted to get away from Gadir, and not doing so, doing as she had told him, had been his answer. However, Eddie had offered a different opinion on how someone should spend their eternal life. His nihilistic approach to the world had gotten him and Esther into a lot of trouble. It had also cost some poor tourist her life. Behind Eddie came another memorable face, but this one invoked a feeling of fear that crept up Whitfield's spine. The tall figure of Foreman calmly entered the building behind his army of followers, his searching eyes taking in everything. Upon his second sighting of the orchestrator of all this mayhem, Whitfield felt just as underwhelmed. The three-piece black suit he wore over a grey shirt, and the way that his greying hair was combed back from his face, did nothing to make him seem noteworthy in any way. Yet the influence he had on the people around him was clear to see. Also, he held himself in a way that glowed with self-confidence. His very presence could only mean bad things were about to happen. Looming one step behind Foreman stood a man in a long black leather trench coat, the folds of his clothing hiding his physique. A black Stetson hat covered all but the lower half of his face. He may as well have been Foreman's shadow, as he matched the group leader's every step, no more than a foot away. Foreman thrust his arm forward as he pulled on the leather cord he was holding, and something crawled through the door behind him. However, Whitfield couldn't see what it was on the leash, as his sight was blocked. Avez joined him and took a step back from the doorway when he saw who had entered. "So much for my lockdown protocols," he said to himself. Whitfield ducked back into the room with Avez. So there you go. The mayhem has come home, so to speak. This is the beginning of the final act, or the second act, which then becomes the final act. Amazon, Race from Darkness is available on Amazon. You'll find the link in the body of this video, along with my Facebook author page, my Twitter page, my Instagram page. If you liked it, let me know. If you didn't like it, let me know. See you next time.